Hey guys, Celine Jakub for Rusty Beauty is here with another project. You see what we have on the table? It's an A-type overdrive. Alright, so like I said, this is an A-type overdrive. It came out of a TR6 and the overdrive wasn't working for years. The transmission was working just fine, but the overdrive wasn't working. Then it was taken to a mechanic shop and they've done something to it, and soon after that... Stop chasing your tail. That's your own tail, buddy. Rusty, say hi. Sorry guys. Then it was taken to a mechanic shop, but it never worked even after they fixed it. And soon after that, the car lost reverse. And when it lost reverse, even in forward, it was making some awful crunching noises from the inside. But yeah, it looks like we're gonna have to take it apart. I don't think I'm gonna troubleshoot it. I'm just gonna take it apart and I'm gonna see, because awful sounds from inside mean something bad happened. Maybe I'm just gonna look at the electrical and see, because suspicions are that the unidirectional clutch is gone, because maybe for whatever reason the switches allowed the solenoid to engage even when the car was in reverse, and that caused the problem. Yeah, I'm just gonna look quickly at the electrical, but for sure we know that there's a problem inside, so we're gonna have to take it apart. Alright, so I looked at the wiring diagram and it looks like this is a later car. I think it's 75 or 76, where the overdrive is designed to work only in third and fourth gear, because the switch for second, now the engineers decided to use it for a neutral safety switch, which I'm not really familiar with what exactly it does. But anyway, so the wiring is connected properly. We have the reverse switch here, and one of the wires for the reverse switch also goes to this switch, and that closes the loop. So all the green wires are the reverse and the neutral safety. With the overdrive wiring though, we have only one switch now, which is for third and fourth, but we also have here an option for a second one. I guess that's how the harness was coming from previous years. This was just covered with electrical tape. These are not used, and that's how it should be. So now, if we connect power to the yellow wire, yellow with green goes to this, but it's just connected to the other one, which is yellow with green, goes to this switch, and then depending on whether this switch is on or off, if it closes the circuit, the power keeps going through the yellow with purple, and it goes this way, and it goes to the solenoid, which is grounded to the body, and this is our ground as well here, the black wire. So if we connect power to the yellow with green here, like this, and we connect ground to this wire here, we should be able to test the solenoid now. So let's lower you down a little. We have power here, but the solenoid is not engaged because we are in neutral. So let's see what's gonna happen if we go to first. Nothing. Second, nothing. Third, now the solenoid engages. Fourth, the solenoid engages, and it engages in neutral. So it works as it should. Let's test reverse though. The solenoid is free. So the wiring is okay. So in this case, there's nothing else to do but to take apart the transmission and the overdrive. At least open the transmission and see what's going on with the gears there, to make sure that the transmission part is okay, only the overdrive is a problem. Okay, all 6 bolts are out. Let's see. empty oil inside, so we need to drain it. It doesn't sound very smooth. It works in reverse, but it doesn't sound very smooth. In neutral it sounds good, so I hope bearings and everything here are good. First, so that's fourth. Wow, I can't even turn it in fourth. Actually, it sounds bad here in the let's put it back in neutral. But now there's nothing wrong. Wow. Anyways, we're gonna have to split the overdrive from the transmission and make sure that the transmission works okay. Anyways, we're gonna leave the transmission alone for now. We're gonna drain the oil and we're gonna split the overdrive from the transmission and go from there. Okay, I put it on an angle a little bit so all the oil from the overdrive can drain into the transmission. That's a weird plug. Oops. Don't fall on me. Okay. No, it's just sludge. Well, actually there are shavings here, you see? Actually there are shavings inside. So something happened somewhere. Okay, so now I have to go out for a couple of hours. So we're gonna let it drain here. Hopefully it doesn't overflow. And we're gonna be back in the afternoon. All right, a few hours later and the oil is all drained. So I'm gonna get rid of it and then we're gonna start taking it apart. I'm sorry about the noise, but that's my heater. It's cold in the garage. It's November already, believe it or not. So first we're gonna start by removing the solenoid so we don't break it, and then we're gonna start splitting it. Okay. Now we're going to remove first the short bolts here. So there's one here, and two on the other side. I don't remember if there's anything at the bottom. No, there isn't. So we're going to remove the 4 short bolts first, and then we're going to start loosening these. They are this long on purpose because there are springs inside, and when we start loosening it, these springs are going to push it out. If we remove the long bolts first and then we remove the short ones, it's going to split itself in a weird way. Now these we're gonna have to loosen evenly, a little bit on one side, then a little bit on the other side. Wow, more oil is coming out. Okay. So now we should be able to split. There you go. So these springs are 4 short and 4 long ones. It looks like this one is short. Huh, look at that. This spring is much shorter than all the other ones. Interesting. So let's compare them. So these should be the long ones. but this one is broken. Huh. And these are the short ones. Yeah, actually these are the long ones. Okay. Yeah. So one of our short springs is broken. Right away we see one problem. Let's find out if there's more. So we're gonna stand it here to drain the rest of the oil. Like this. And in the meantime, we're gonna look at the transmission. So this is the lobe that turns the oil pump. It's interesting, it spins in neutral, and in neutral all shafts still turn. But why don't... Yeah, you hear that sound? I guess it's the bearing here on the input shaft. This bearing is not that hard to replace, I guess, but it doesn't sound healthy at all. It's interesting because it sounds better in third than in fourth. That's really interesting because in neutral it spins normal. In first gear doesn't sound bad. Second gear doesn't sound bad. Third gear not bad at all. But fourth gear something is grinding. Is it this ring touching something down there? No. Huh. Okay, we're gonna have to look at the transmission as well. And by the way, I can see a chipped tooth on the leg gear down there. So you see it there? There you go. Down there the leg gear has a chipped tooth. Anyway, we're gonna figure out the transmission later. Let's take the overdrive apart. It should be drained by now. Look at that. This is what came out. So, like I said, the unidirectional clutch is gone. Alright, so let's keep taking it apart. Alright, so we're gonna start by removing the operation valve. Wow, everything is so tight on this transmission. Really? Okay. Okay. So there's the spring, plunger, and there must be a bow inside. That's how we remove the bow from inside. If we remove the magnet, it drops. So there's another valve and another bow, and the two bows are different, so we need to make sure that the right one goes on the right place. And this is the stem of the valve, which has a little hole somewhere that we're gonna have to make sure that is clean. There you go. Ah, it's clean. I can tell it's clean. It blew right into my face. Okay. Need to clean my glasses now. So now we can remove the accumulator and it's located behind this plate here for the solenoid. So I have to remove this lever first. There's a spacer here, very important. This rubber boot is done. I'm gonna need a new one. Now these bolts and nuts here, the four that hold this plate, will need to be removed again evenly because there's a pretty heavy spring behind them. I guess the silicone is holding. There you go. I have the feeling this spring is way too loose. There's an O-ring here that we will need to replace. Here's the spring. We're gonna measure it later and make sure that it is still the correct length. Sleeve. And then the piston underneath. But there's more oil. So now we have to take the accumulator piston out of there, and to take it out, there's a little trick. We're gonna put the bowl inside the opening for the valve, again, the operating valve. Then we're gonna take our blower, we're gonna put it there, take something here to hold the piston, and then we're gonna shoot air inside, and the piston is out. This is our piston, which has a big O-ring on it. So I'm gonna change this. Let's absorb as much of this oil as possible. And here inside this piston, there's another piston. So there's piston inside a piston. And there, you don't see them, but there's a set of rings here, which is quite expensive, but it looks like they're in a good shape, so we're not gonna bother with them. All right, so next we are gonna remove those bridges from here. I don't remember what exactly they were called, and we're gonna pull out the operating pistons. And the early overdrives had steel rings on these pistons. The late ones have rubber O-rings. So the nuts here have those tab washers, which, if I remember correctly, are not available. Can't find them anywhere. So we're gonna have to be careful not to break them. This is what it looks like, the tab washer. See if we can pull the pistons out now. There you go. Okay, they have rubber O-rings. That's good because they're cheaper to replace. Next we should remove the oil pump, which is located here. This is the plunger, so it goes down that way, but first we're gonna have to remove the check valve, which is right there inside. I don't know if you see it. It is very similar to the operational valve. So it has a plug. The spring remained inside the plug, so there's also a copper washer here. Behind the spring we have a plunger. Oh, and even the bowl came out with the plunger. So these are the two bowls. The big one is from the operational valve, the smaller one is from the check valve of the oil pump. Now we can remove the oil pump, but to remove the oil pump I need a special tool which I don't have. In the past, John Liu, one of the Toronto Triumph Club members, lended me his tool. I'm sure he would lend it to me again, but he lives too far from me now, and it is also like I need to make one for myself. So we're gonna leave the oil pump for now, and we're gonna split the housing in two pieces. Actually, we can take out the plug. I also need to buy a tool for this, but that's my dog sleeping on the couch. I need to buy a special tool for this too, but it works this way as well. Okay. Here there, wow, look at all this sludge. Here there must be some magnets here, but we're gonna deal with that later. We're gonna inspect all the parts. There's this fiber washer here. I'm gonna keep it for now because I don't know if we can find it, if we can buy it. So here there's two little bolts that hold the pump in place, and they are set screws or whatever they are. We need a real screwdriver. This one is missing the lock washer. Wow, and when they were installing it, I guess they didn't locate it the right way. It goes down there with pretty high friction, and what they did is when they were putting it in, the hose on the actual pump didn't match the hose on the housing, so they had to use something to punch it left and right to put it in the right orientation, and they made these holes too big. So that's a plug which we can remove. And now we need to make a tool with a longer bolt like this and a cap here with a hole in it, so we can put the longer bolt through the cap and tighten it into the pump, and then there's gonna be a second nut on the bolt. When we tighten the second nut, that's gonna pull the pump out. So let me see if I can figure out something that I can use to make that tool. Alright, so I made this pump extractor, I should call it. So it is a bolt. It was threaded only like 2 inches in the front, but I took a die and I threaded it all the way, and I have this nut there. So this end fits into the oil pump. So now we can put, I guess I can just use this and a washer and the bolt. I can bolt it into the pump. I'm gonna tighten the nut. So now by turning this nut, we're gonna extract the pump, but we shouldn't let the bolt over tighten on the pump because it might crack it. So we're gonna hold the bolt so it doesn't turn, and we only turn the nut. Actually, I can do this. There you go. I think it's out. There you go. So this is the body of the oil pump. So this is where the bowl of the check valve ends up being. So when we're putting it back, I'll show you the procedure, but it is important that this hole ends up right where the check valve is. So there's no other way anyways. And like I showed you here before, it's been a little bit mangled because probably when they were installing it, the hole didn't end up exactly where it was supposed to be, and the screw holes were not lining up with the threaded holes down there, and they just used the chisel probably or something to turn it, and they mangled it a little bit. So we have to be really careful to position it properly next time. So this is the plunger and the spring of the pump. Now the pump is out, and next we should start splitting the two parts. So we're pretty much done with this part. There's a spacer here, so let's measure this. There's actually a bearing and a spacer. So these spacers come in different widths, and this needs to be measured when assembling to make sure that we have the proper spacer there. So I'm gonna measure this one to know how much it is before we take it out. So this one is 88 thou. So we know. So now let's see what we have here. So this is the sun gear. Something fell out. No. Okay. There's clutch material here that we need to double check. We need to make sure it's in a good shape. This bearing looks and sounds good. But this is our planetary mechanism. I shouldn't have taken out the sun gear. Anyways, it's too late now. Before I took it out, I could have checked whether the planetary mechanism is aligned properly. Yeah, anyways, let's take it out. And this is our problem. This is what is left of the unidirectional clutch. Even the rollers are broken. I hope it didn't cause any other damages. Wow, look, a roller split in two. The other half. Never seen something like that before. This bearing sounds good, but we're gonna press out the annulus and we're gonna see. I guess we should change the bearing there, and we have to change the seal as well. So here we have another one of these bearings. Ooh, we have a small problem here. So the bearings from here are missing as well. So our planetary mechanism here needs to be taken care of as well. Well, and here it is a little bit chewed up. So this is what rides on our bearing here, right? So that surface needs to be in a good shape. And there must be a bearing on this side as well, which normally you are not able to take out because of these gears, but looks like this one magically disappeared somehow. Okay, so next I think we should take this flange out. Well, I don't have a socket this big, I have it at work. So you know what, guys, I'm gonna go and make a list and see if it is worth buying everything and repairing it, or what the next steps are gonna be. And we're gonna talk again. I think we're gonna need the whole planetary mechanism changed, because this gear is the one that the bearing failed, but probably because the bearing failed is what preserved the actual gear, because it was able to push away from the sun gear or whatever. But here, where the bearings didn't fail, the teeth were chewed, like they were chipped really badly, and on the other one as well. So here we need all the gears and the whole mechanism actually, so we will see how much that costs. We need the new unidirectional clutch, we need new bearings, and that's it. And we need new gaskets and new O-rings and stuff like that, and seals. But the main part is the unidirectional clutch and the planetary mechanism. Alright, so it's a few days later, and it turns out it's not that easy to find this part, which is the planet carrier, or at least gears for it. We can't even find gears. Turns out there are two different types, for early overdrives and for late overdrives, so that makes it even harder. Not that any of them are available. Like, you can buy almost everything for these overdrives, but you can't find a new carrier, planet carrier. But I was also looking at the annulus here, and it turns out that even the annulus has some problems. Let me zoom in. So if you look here, there's a dent here, which I believe we can file. Not really sure, but some of the teeth have been mangled. Like here, for example, I thought that these are leftovers from the clutch, but not really. Some of these things here are damaged teeth. I don't know if we can clean this up, but looks like, for example, these two teeth here, this one and this one, are broken. Like, they're cracked and they're ready to come off. And in each and every one of them there's pieces of metal that I'm not sure if they are leftovers from the clutch or they are just dents in the teeth. But I don't think that this annulus is salvageable. There was one tooth, I'm looking for it, that was bent actually. Yeah, if you look at this tooth here, looks like it is bent. It's not a straight line. So unfortunately, we're gonna need a new annulus too. Oh my god, that's pretty complicated. Anyways, we're gonna end this video here, and we're gonna come back with an update at some point, clarify whether we have parts for it, whether we can find parts, whether we can put it back together, or it can be only used as parts. We will see about that. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for commenting and subscribing, and hopefully there's gonna be part 2 of this video, but we might end up without part 2. We will see. At least I'm gonna come back and tell you whether we're gonna find parts for it and we're gonna rebuild it, or it's not worth at all. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.